So in my last video, I was mentioning how I believed it was pretty likely that we would get a January Nintendo Direct, possibly as early as this week. And we did just get a Direct announced this week. However, it's not a Nintendo Direct, it's a Pokemon Direct. January 9th, that's this Thursday, there will be a Pokemon Direct at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Roughly 20 minutes of new Pokemon information is going to be live streamed in the Direct. And over on Twitter, Sarah B even pointed out that this Direct is to be the longest ever Pokemon Direct. This is going to be interesting. Now, with Pokemon Sword and Shield only being a couple of months old, it's very interesting we're getting a Pokemon Direct this shortly after those games released. Over on Twitter, @Rookie185 pointed out, the German press release specifically states that we'll get new details about Pokemon Sword and Shield in this Pokemon Direct. So given that, my assumption is that this will not be about like some new Pokemon game. Maybe they'll announce a new Pokemon game, but I actually think this will be more about like maybe adding in some of those cut Pokemon to Pokemon Sword and Shield, maybe some DLC announced, maybe something like more Pokemon for the raid battles or something like that. I also think we'll probably see them highlight Pokemon Home a little bit, and yeah, it's possible we could get some new Pokemon game announced. Maybe a remake of Gen 4, maybe a new Pokemon Snap or a new Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. That would be pretty cool. Those are basically my predictions at this point. Now, many of us were thinking we'd get a January Nintendo Direct announced, and instead we've gotten this Pokemon Direct announced. We also have to finish the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Fighters Pass by the end of February, and we haven't even had the last character revealed yet, let alone released. So some people are thinking this could point to potentially this Pokemon Direct having our Smash character revealed to us, and it could be a Pokemon character. I've always found it a little odd on the roster that we have Greninja and Incineroar, but we don't have any final Grass Evolution starter. Rillaboom could fill that gap and be a final Grass Evolution starter that would kind of fit that trifecta of what's going on so far with Greninja and Incineroar. Rillaboom also has a music theme associated with that Pokemon. And there's a lot of evidence that at one point the Chorus Kids were maybe going to be a playable character in Super Smash Bros. So it's possible that whatever music-themed, rhythm-themed moveset Sakurai might have had in mind for the Chorus Kids could actually show up in the form of Rillaboom, if that was, you know, a scrapped moveset or something and Sakurai wants to implement that in some way. Personally, my favorite grass starter is Sceptile, so I've always wanted Sceptile to finish that trifecta, but Rillaboom could make sense here. If we did get Rillaboom as the 5th DLC character for the Fighters Pass, it would be the first-party character that's gotten into the Fighters Pass, and the first-party DLC character since Piranha Plant for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This could open up the door for many more first-party characters getting in as further DLC, as so far most people seem to guess at third-party characters. Just given the characters we've gotten so far, it seems when speculation is happening for DLC, most people think about third-party characters. If we did get a Pokemon revealed as a DLC character for Super Smash Bros. During this Pokemon Direct, I think that would totally change speculation. I think a lot of people would become much more open to the idea of first-party characters getting in as DLC. However, I actually don't think we're going to get a Smash character reveal at the Pokemon Direct. I think we're still going to get a January Nintendo Direct, I just don't think it's going to be this week anymore. I think it's going to be next week, and there's actually some evidence supporting this. Over on my Discord, EpicChew pointed out this pattern for Pokemon Directs and Nintendo Directs. It says Pokemon Direct September 4th, 2013, Nintendo Direct September 8th, 2013, Pokemon Direct February 26th, 2016, Nintendo Direct March 3rd, 2016, Pokemon Direct June 7th, 2017, Nintendo Direct June 13th, 2017, Pokemon Direct June 6th, 2019, Nintendo Direct June 11th, 2019. Yes, 2 of the Directs were E3, but we only had 1 or 2 Pokemon Directs outside of E3. So in other words, there's a pretty consistent pattern here of getting a Pokemon Direct and then the following week getting a Nintendo Direct. It makes a lot of sense if you think about it. The Pokemon Company is somewhat separate from Nintendo, but when Nintendo wants to announce new information, it's possible the Pokemon Company wants to do so as well, but they want to do it on their own terms, so they make their own Direct to coincide with a Nintendo Direct, and I think that's probably what's happening here. I think we'll get this Pokemon Direct this week, and then I think next week we'll get that January Nintendo Direct. We haven't had a Nintendo Direct since September. We have to have that final Smash character revealed in order for them to be released in February. I just think it makes a lot of sense to get a January Direct here. We haven't really seen too much of what Nintendo's doing in 2020. It's the right time to have a Direct. So I do still think there'll be one in January. I just think it's going to be next week. And given this pattern, I think it's actually pretty darn likely, given that we just got this Pokemon Direct. Now, as far as Smash News itself goes, we actually just got a new update picked up by the Super Smash Bros. U bot over on Twitter. It's version 6.1.1, which should release fairly soon here. I'm assuming this new update adds in compatibility for Dark Samus and Richter Belmont amiibos, which show up on January 17th. So most likely this will be the most recent update when those amiibos do get released. So I think we will get a January Nintendo Direct probably sometime next week, but I don't think we'll get the character released immediately. I think we'll get the character announced, but I think the character will be released later on, probably in February, because to release that character, they'd have to update again. They'd have to give us another new version, and I believe that this version is probably for amiibo compatibility, so I just don't think the timing works out to get like a shadow drop of the character right after release. I believe the character will still be released in February, but I do think they'll be announced probably next week at a January Nintendo Direct. That way, version 6.1.1 will be the latest version of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate right when these amiibos show up on the 17th. Okay, so with that said, it seems it's pretty likely we'll get a Nintendo Direct next week. But what day exactly will we get that Direct? There's actually some evidence for what day it could be, and even potentially what character could get announced for Smash alongside with that day. Devil May Cry 3 is coming to Nintendo Switch on February 20th, and Dante's been a character people have been speculating about for Smash for a long time now. Nearly a year ago, there was an interview that kind of counted Dante out for a Smash DLC character. It says, Devil May Cry boss addresses Dante's Smash Ultimate demand. Says series should be on Switch first. So basically, Capcom was saying that in order for Dante to ever get into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, it would make sense for his games to first appear on the Nintendo Switch. Well, a few months after that was said, we actually got announced that Devil May Cry 1 and 2 were indeed coming to the Nintendo Switch. So if that was the barrier preventing Dante from getting into Smash, it's now gone. I first saw this next theory from RGT85 in a video he just posted, and I'll leave a link to that video in the description below if you want to check it out. Over on Twitter, @YuYuKami wrote, wow, apparently Devil May Cry 3 for Switch is going to have some kind of special content. Matt Walker said to stay tuned for 3 dates, January 16th, winking emoji, January 30th, and February 13th. And this is from an interview with Matt Walker where he said to pay special attention to those dates if you're a fan of Devil May Cry 3, and specifically talking about it coming to the Nintendo Switch. Over on Twitter, Stealth said, apparently something special is being added to the Switch release for Devil May Cry 3. He even noted 3 dates that we should look out for. One being January 16th, next Thursday, which wouldn't be a bad date for another Direct. And I completely agree with that. January 16th makes a lot of sense. It would be next Thursday. It fits that pattern of the Pokemon Directs, and then the next week following a Nintendo Direct. It also would fit what Matt Walker's saying about when we should look out for Devil May Cry 3 information. So potentially this could be Dante being revealed for Super Smash Bros. It could, of course, also just be some new Devil May Cry 3 info on the 16th. So I'm not sure where to, place that bet, but it's pretty interesting that this date is now lining up very well with when we could get a Nintendo Direct. It's also the day before those Super Smash Bros. Amiibos get released on the 17th, so I do think the 16th is probably the most likely day we'll get a Nintendo Direct. Another date to keep an eye on is Monday, January 20th. There's a strange maintenance window happening for Nintendo. It's for purchasing and using passes. I'm not sure what that could be about. Potentially something to do with the Fighters Pass? I really don't know. Maybe we'll get the Nintendo Direct on the 16th, and then maybe they'll announce the next Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Fighters Pass. Maybe we are getting the further DLC as another pass, and this might be some sort of update for that. It's a possibility here. Also over on Twitter, @Power of5Rilla pointed out that the 7-Elevens in Japan once again have a new ad for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It appears this ad will be showing up in 7-Elevens until February 20th in Japan, so maybe that gives us a good window of when our next Super Smash Bros. Ultimate character could be actually released. Maybe they'll be announced in a Nintendo Direct in January, but released at some point close to February 20th. These 7-Eleven ads don't always coincide with things like that, but it's interesting this one's going to be up until the 20th. Now, with Dante gaining some grounds as the possible 5th DLC character, I actually want to talk about another character that I just keep coming back to as a possibility for the 5th DLC fighter. Over on Twitter, Sakurai has started doing picks of the day for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate again. And while I've kind of been writing off any theories based on these pictures, and people have had theories, I've sort of thought of them close to speculating about the chairs behind Sakurai, the purple and yellow chairs. So I've sort of just been writing off these picks of the day. A lot of them are pretty strange anyway. However, one of Sakurai's more recent picks of the day seems to be a reference to a character that I keep coming back to as a possibility for the 5th DLC fighter. It's this picture right here. It's a picture of Marth looking over his shoulder with Isabelle appearing to be on his shoulder. She looks a little smaller than she actually is in the game with the way they shot it. It appears as if she's actually sitting on Marth's back or something and is a smaller character than she really is. Over on Twitter, Prinny for Smash Ultimate wrote this. For a moment, it reminded me of this image of Arle and Carbuncle. And if you look at the two images, they look very, very similar. Isabelle's a really good stand-in for Carbuncle, especially shot at that angle, which makes her look smaller than she actually is, and Marth's armor looks a lot like Arle's armor. This isn't even the only image of Carbuncle on Arle's shoulder. That's actually a common thing that happens in the Puyo Puyo games. Now, like I said, I wasn't really giving much thought to these pics of the day that Sakurai was putting out, and I was sort of writing off anybody's theories about them, pointing to a specific character. For instance, this one sort of looks like it could point to, like, Ninja Gaiden, but I just assumed, it was just a coincidence. Something similar to when everyone was thinking that this picture of Rathalos was a reference to the Golden Sun games. Now, of course, we did get Isaac back as an assist trophy, so it's possible this was a reference. And it's even possible that this new picture Sakurai's put out is indeed a reference to Arle, but maybe she isn't actually showing up in Smash. It could just be a reference. Sakurai is a big fan of gaming in general. However, given all the evidence Arle already has stacking up for her, I can't really ignore this one. Honestly, I've always thought Arle fits best for Daisy Theory, and I can't really shake Daisy Theory. It's very, very strange that Daisy is in that image of all the DLC characters. She really doesn't fit there, and it really seems like she could be a stand-in for whoever our 5th DLC character is, and that character could very well be Arle from Puyo Puyo. She fits extremely well for Daisy, even the pose Daisy's doing, and the color orange. We've had color theory going for a while, and it does seem like our last DLC character will probably have an orange background, and Arle fits that perfectly. Also, one very strange thing going in Arle's favor that I just cannot seem to shake is that the Switch Online had Puyo Puyo in Japanese released for the English Switch Online. The Japanese and North American selection of games are not the same on the Switch Online, yet for some reason Puyo Puyo in Japanese was decided to be released on the North American versions of the Switch Online, instead of its equivalent, Kirby's Avalanche. It's a really strange thing to do. Why omit Kirby's Avalanche from going to the Switch Online? Why give us Puyo Puyo in both regions, unless you want the character Arle to be familiar with audiences in the West? Puyo Puyo is also Sega's second highest grossing franchise, right below Sonic the Hedgehog. Also, Puyo Puyo Tetris was a really big game during the early days of the Nintendo Switch. It could make sense that that character was negotiated for around the same time. We also recently got Tetris Spirits added into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Puyo Puyo is still missing to complete that game. Also, given some mock fan polls of Japanese data, it looked as though Arle was doing pretty well on the Japanese Smash ballot. Now, evidence doesn't always lead to a character getting into Smash, but I just simply can't ignore all the stuff going in Arle's favor. I keep going back to her. I keep thinking she seems likely, and then some more evidence gets piled on top of that. I'm not ready to lock in who I think the next character will be, and I've gone over all sorts of characters who the 5th DLC fighter might be over the past few months here. Seems like we've jumped around a ton ever since Terry's reveal. However, with Arle in particular, about a month before Daisy Theory popped up, and I saw other people really speculating in favor of Arle being our 5th DLC character, I made a video just showing all this evidence, and I don't usually do that for characters. I usually only show what, has happened recently as far as, leaks and stuff go, but Arle was just a character I was seeing a lot of evidence build up for, and I wanted to address her because I didn't see anybody talking about her. Now, like I said, I've talked about tons and tons of characters as a possible 5th DLC Fighters Pass character since Terry's release, but Arle's sort of a special case because I really pulled that character out of obscurity as far as speculation goes to start talking about her, and she's only gained more and more evidence ever since I did that. So if it does end up being Arle, I'm going to have to say I called that one. I don't want to be not modest here, guys, but seriously, that one feels like, and I called it, and I'll be pretty excited about that. Now, last video I was talking about how some games were potentially leaking, and that usually happens before a Nintendo Direct, and we have another one here. It says, hungry for an expansive space survival adventure on Switch? Well, one more could be well on its way pretty soon. The ESRB has updated its listing for Astroneer for the Nintendo Switch. We also had an interview recently that said Bayonetta 3 might be getting some new information very soon, and we also have a release date for Samurai Showdown on Nintendo Switch. That release date is February 23rd. So with all this news about potential Nintendo Switch games showing up, it does seem very likely we'll get a Nintendo Direct very soon. If I had to guess, I'm thinking it's next week and probably on the 16th. Nintendo also recently applied for some new trademarks for Pikmin, Animal Crossing, Splatoon, and The Legend of Zelda. Apparently these are pretty standard trademark renewals, and I think the one for Pikmin was just for merchandise, but I'd be really excited if we got anything Pikmin announced in this next Nintendo Direct. If it was like a Pikmin 3 port to Nintendo Switch with some updates, maybe adding back caves into the game, that would be amazing. Or if we got Pikmin 4, I'd be absolutely ecstatic. I love the Pikmin series and have been waiting to hear some news for it for a long time here. Alright, well that's everything I wanted to talk about in this video. I'm excited for this Pokemon Direct to see what we get, and I'll definitely do some sort of reaction video to it on Thursday. I'm also thinking that we will probably still get a January Nintendo Direct, and most likely next week. That seems to be a bit of a pattern with Pokemon Directs being shortly after followed with Nintendo Directs, so I do think that's going to happen here. Again, most likely January 16th is my guess, but hey, we'll have to keep a watch on it. Who knows what the exact date will be. If you guys have any thoughts or comments about any of the stuff I talked about in this video, leave them below. So once again, thank you guys for all the subscribes, all the likes. It really helps out the channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do so, or like the video, or leave a comment, whatever you want. Until next time, have a good one.